Welcome. This is our final slot before we all have some lunch. I'm Jo. I'm from an agency called The Moment. We're part of the Creative Engagement Group, and we are super proud to be sponsoring the design track today. Next up, who is a bit of a hero because he stepped in because Woe couldn't make it, unfortunately. So I think don't be put off by the sexy topic, designers. It's going to be great. Over to Craig.
Thanks very much. Yes, sorry, I do apologise. I don't know anything about internet things or voice activated stuff, so this is completely different. And also, I've been put on the pre-lunch slot as well, and this goes on for 4 hours, so settle down, everyone. Okay, so my name's Craig Buckler. I'm a freelance web developer. I realise I'm not actually a designer. I'm in the design track, but all of us developers are, they just want to be designers anyway, aren't we? So enough about me. You're not going to see any self-promotion or subliminal advertising during this video. I wouldn't be so vulgar. But let's talk about portable document format. So, yeah, fresh tech. Only been around 25 years. I'll keep you interested though just by mentioning blockchain and serverless every so often. So, anyone not familiar with PDFs? Good. Anybody love them? Oh, come on. Really? Well, essentially a PDF is printing instructions sent to a file rather than the printer. And that makes them very practical. So, first of all, any application can create a PDF. If it can print, it can do it. You can do a print preview before saving to see what you're going to get. The file is effectively read-only, which means it can be sent to others without any security implications or any problems. Those people can open it on a free PDF reader. They don't need the software that created it. You can usually read a PDF offline. You can print them as perfectly as the original application created them. And finally, PDFs are the will of the people. It's what they want, and we should never question that. But a little backstory to this presentation. I've been building a web application for a client over the last few years, and it's nothing revolutionary. They enter some data, and their customers interact with that and get all sorts of amazing business insights. And I was quite smug about it. It was, pretty good. But they contacted me sort of end of 2017, so they were spending several days every month creating PDF reports for their users. I question why? Why do you want to do that? These users can log in anytime they like, with a few clicks, can get whatever data they want. But there was a good reason for it. That. I know nothing about marketing. You see, but I'm not a typical user, and nor are any of you, because if we want to know about something, some technology or some design, well, we go looking for it. We search the web, we ask others, we go to conferences. We're not typical users. So, other users are not like us, other people I should say, because they want to be told what's good for them. They want to know the information in bite-sized chunks, and they don't want to do their own research. They've got busy jobs and better things to do. So this report gave them a summary of a snapshot, a file they could keep, which they could access at any time, and it reminded them that even if they weren't logging on every day, they were getting a useful service for their money. So I had to accept it actually worked quite well. So my next question to my client was, well, how are you creating these PDFs? Well, first of all, they were accessing the web reports that I'd given them, and then they were taking screenshots. Now, I've got to be clear here, I'd sweated for days over creating SVGs and CSVs and all sorts of other things that they could export, but then I grabbed screenshots. And these screenshots as well were really blocky, so they had to zoom in and stitch all these screens together. It was horrible. And next they'd paste it into PowerPoint. Yeah, PowerPoint. Not Excel, nothing useful, but their staff loved PowerPoint. They understood it, and it meant that they could edit it and put in some notes and stuff like that. And then they would save it as PDF. And of course, these PDFs were pretty ropey. And also, they were megabytes. They were huge. They were about 4 or 5 megabytes in size. And when they sent them to the clients would go, well, these files are massive. I can't even download it. So it caused problems. So, rightly or wrongly, this was the process that they were using. It was working for them. So, there are 2 main ways of creating a PDF from a browser or any other application. And the first one most people use, because you don't really need to do anything. You just let the application print to a PDF file. And all browsers support that these days. Now there are some CSS properties you can use, but they're quite limited. You know, you can't really say, well, I want this page to be landscape, this page to be portrait, or do anything fancy with it. So the control is fairly limited. The second option is to actually draw onto the paper canvas. So you've got ultimate flexibility because you're basically putting lines and text onto the paper. But it's a lot of effort. Now I'm sure all of you can write raw PDF code, you know, before breakfast every morning. But you know, most of us developers turn to a library, and it's, well, the results are still a little bit on the dodgy side. It's a lot of work, and there's no real midway between these points. It's either very, very easy or very hard. So I started to question my life choices, but then I had this eureka moment. Why was I trying to convert one perfectly good document format to another, you know, HTML to PDF? Was I using PDF just because that was what was expected? Was it really the best option? If I could export as HTML instead of an HTML file, well, it'd be a lot easier to develop, a lot faster. And also it would benefit the users. So first of all users, all OSs have a browser of some sort, and that's not necessarily true of PDF readers. HTML documents can be responsive, so you know, on a smartphone, a tablet, a TV, a games console, doesn't matter what you're using, you can see a view which actually fits your screen. That's not the same with PDFs, which you know, on a mobile you're panning and zooming around. The file size is generally smaller. You can usually copy and paste. You sometimes can from a PDF, but it really depends on how it's been created. Accessibility is better. Screen readers tend to be able to look at HTML a lot better than PDFs. And HTML is an open standard. Now, to be fair, PDF is an open standard, but the software that you use is often commercial. But I'd only win this argument if I could bring all the benefits of PDF into HTML. It certainly couldn't be more difficult to create or send to others. But I think it was this last point here that caused the most concern for my client. Oh, you know, users, they generally expect it. Now, I have to say, most users don't really care what you're sending them. As long as they can open it, they're absolutely fine with that. But I had to look at the options. Did anyone remember MHTML? Oh, a couple of nods. The rest of you, ask your grandparents about surfing the web in the 1990s using a 56k modem. You see, back then, in those days, loading a web page could take 30 seconds. Unbelievable. 30 seconds, 30 whole seconds. So what you do is you open a load of pages and save them as MHTML for offline browsing. And that meant you could eat for the week rather than pay BT. So anyway, that was only supported by IE, which really wasn't an option. And it was horrible format anyway. It's basically what HTML email is today. So, I have some objectives. First thing I'll do is create just a web report. Didn't really matter what it was, but you could preview that page, make a few edits, you know, remove pages, add pages, whatever you needed to do, but then download a static version of itself as just plain HTML, as a single HTML file. It would have to look like a page document so users weren't confused, so it would have, you know, pages or slides a bit like a PDF. It would have to print well. It would never be better than a PDF, but you know, had to be okay at the very least. It definitely had to be viewable offline, because people would be reading these on a train or a plane or whatever, so I couldn't reference external assets such as fonts. I had to make sure all the CSS images were all embedded directly into the document. And it couldn't contain any JavaScript in the output. That's mainly because a lot of these systems, corporate email systems, will flag a security alert. And if you just listen carefully, you'll hear a couple of React developers screaming, but it doesn't really matter, because whatever client-side or server-side system you're using, ultimately it still puts HTML onto the browser canvas. And if you can get that HTML and export it in some way, you've got a file. So, let's do some coding, shall we? And you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to go, oh, was that? Have I lost it? Whoa, it's a bit temperamental. Crikey, this is very temperamental. Don't, hang on a minute.
Maybe it just doesn't like that.
I think it's just slightly loose. Let me just plug it in slightly. That's hideous, isn't it? Stay. Tell you what I'll do. Let's do a quick reboot of graphic driver. Look at that, solid as a rock. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to do any live editing because there's not enough time and I'm a coward, so fair enough. So this is the basic structure of the page. We have got here a main tag, and within it we've got articles. Each article is a page or slide in your PDF thing. We've also got a head at the top there, which contains the usual meta tags, and there's an inline style sheet. Got to be in line, has to be in line. So it doesn't matter how we create this content, as long as we get HTML or CSS within this head or the main with the ideal port there. Anything outside of them, such as this stuff down here, isn't exported into another file. So we can do whatever we like. We can add styles and other features that we need to actually help with the preview. So that's the basic outline. So let's look at a little bit of, this is a finished document now, or a partially finished document. So I've expanded on styles here, and you can see there's some inline images using base 64 encoding. Let me just see what else we've got. We've got some SVG diagrams. We've got another diagram which is an encoded PNG by the look of it. And if we have a look at what we've got, this is our initial stab of it. So you see there's a few charts, bit of text, doesn't look anything too fancy yet. But the important thing, as you'll see, is this disk icon at the top. And if I just go back, you'll see that this icon is just positioned here. So it's a standard link tag. The important thing is this download attribute, which specifies file name. It just means that the browser will force a download rather than trying to handle it itself. And it's usually used for things like images or PDFs to make sure that the download actually comes. And of course the href normally points to a URL, but it can be a data URI. So we can actually download the file that we're looking at this particular moment in time. So that's the basis of this whole project. One line of code stretched into a 20-minute presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, it's not quite one line of code. We've got a little bit of styling there just to position it at the top. And then somewhere we've got an event handler, which just intercepts the click when the user clicks on that icon. And then all it does, it extracts the head and the body, HTML, that's the report, the main div, grabs it out and puts it into a string, and just puts it into a page then, and then just adds it to the href of that download tag as a data URI. And there's a little bit of encoding down here just to strip out things like white space, comments, there's some script tags that are removed. This is just using regular expressions. So if we have a look now, and we click this, we can save it, and then we'll open that file, and we'll see this is an offline file which we can view, and it's got all the same information as we had before. Obviously it's not got the icon now, but this could be sent to anybody. If you have a look at the source, it's totally unreadable and horrible and compressed and minified, and the file, I think this one's about 20k, so it's tiny, even though it's got all those images put in there. Now, this downloading functionality, I'm afraid, doesn't work in IE or the latest Microsoft version of Edge, but the file you download can be viewed in anything. So let's pimp it up a little bit. So we'll go to this view. Home. So all I've done is got some actual pages in here. And you can see it looks a little bit like a PDF, and it does some nice stuff. So all I've done to create that is we're using grid, and if you want to know more about grid, you should be in the other session, which is on now. But in this case, all it means is that the slides we've got fit to the size of the screen, like just size them accordingly. But if it needs more room, if you've got a long table or a big chart, it will actually stretch beyond that. So this is already responsive. So we can put it right down to a tiny, tiny screen, and you can see it just happens to fit within the right area, but it will make it bigger. If we have a tiny screen, it will make the height bigger than as big as it needs to be. So what else is in here? We've got some scroll snap properties here. These are fairly new, so what it means is as it moves close to the viewport edge, it'll snap the slide into place. It works in all browsers now, I think, apart from IE. There's some counters, which all this is for is the page numbering. So you can see this page numbering down the footer here. So just standard CSS counters, just increases as you go along. There's some background images, so that is these background images here. What they are is actually tiny little JPEGs. I think they're about 30, 40, 50 pixels across, and they're just stretched to the full size of the screen, but then a CSS blur filter is applied over so it looks reasonable. And you'll also see that I've got some toggle buttons. So I can switch pages off, and all this is doing is applying a class to this particular page of remove, I think it is, and the actual regular expressions, they just take that out of the content. It takes the big HTML string, removes it out of the content. So let's remove some other ones as well. And finally, you can make any HTML element editable just by adding a content editable tag. So you can see this paragraph here, and if I find that, I can actually edit it. Hello. Told you I should never code live or type or do anything. Oh, crikey. Now this might be good enough for you. I found users were cutting and pasting from Word and it was putting all sorts of HTML vomit into it. So I actually replaced it with some sort of very simple markdown editor. But, you know, for basic text entry, it's fine. So now we can just save this. Save it as a file. Open it up. And you can see this can be sent to anybody. So we've got, it's all the same content. That page that we took out is missing somewhere, so there was a page between there. Page numbers are all still fine, and you can see there's that hello future sync. So this, again, if we look at the source, you can see it's still just all minified rubbish that would be difficult to edit. Okay, but it doesn't print quite well yet, so that's the next target. So I've got a media query here which just targets when it's being sent to a printer. And all this is basically doing is sending a comfortable font size, 16 pixels here, ensures the text is always black on white, adjusts some of the margins, also removes some unnecessary content. So the footer, you don't really need the page counter in the footer because you've got one on paper. And it pains me to say this as well, but browsers can't print CSS Grid or Flexbox. Just can't do it, they give up. It's probably going to get better, but it didn't really matter in this case, so I've just used display block, just made it into that, so every slide is now a block. You can also add page breaks. Now, that's actually quite difficult to do because you don't know where a page is going to break. So what I've used instead is break inside a void, and the page break inside a void is actually just for old IEs now. But what it does, it just says, okay, well, this slide, try and avoid breaking it in the middle. And if there's a table, try and avoid that. And if there's a graph, try and avoid breaking there. And it works quite well. And then, finally, that's that image we've got, which is somewhere there. So it's a dark image it's light text on a dark background. What we can do is very clever, and that is to invert it with a filter. You then rotate the hue 180 degrees, which means it then goes back to sort of what it was. Bit of adjustment of the brightness and contrast. You designers won't worry about this for me. And what we end up with, if we do a print preview, we get actually a quite nice looking report, and there's that chart. So it's now gone from dark to a light background. So the document prints quite nicely, as you can see. It's okay. We're saving a bit of paper as well because we will fit on as many slides as we can onto a single sheet. So I think this is just about 4 pages. But of course, very few people actually print it because it looks so good on screen. You're not going to lose anything. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation. Yeah. So that's the end of the code. Hope you enjoyed that. So we've now got a static HTML file. Oh, hang on, no. Yes, we've got a static HTML file which we can just send to anybody. It's just a file on its own, does nothing. But there is a minor hitch. Anyone using Gmail? Everyone's got a Gmail account, haven't they? Right, so Gmail. You get your message, you open your message, and you've got an attachment, which is an HTML document. You click that attachment as a preview. What do you think happens? I'll give you a clue. It opens in a new tab. There's no Gmail, stuff around it. It's in a new tab on its own. Any ideas? It's worse than that. It treats it like an HTML email. So it strips out all the styles, it strips out all the images, and actually here it's not terrible because I've used semantic HTML, so you get H1s and H2s, it's okay. But a lot of users would think, well, this is it, this is the document I've got. So really, you could fix it with inline tables and inline styles, but life is too short for that sort of nonsense. So what I did instead is just put a sentence at the top saying, this isn't viewing correctly. And it's got an ID of export view, which if the CSS works, it just hides that, takes it out of the page. And so what you end up with is that. So it's pretty obvious that this isn't the final thing. You've just got to download it and view it. Now, I wish Gmail didn't do that, but it doesn't matter. You can't really tell what these email clients are going to do. It may not be just Gmail either. So that's it. We've now got a web report that we can preview, edit, we can export to a single file. It doesn't matter how it's created as long as it puts HTML onto the page. Now some of the CSS properties I showed there don't work particularly well in IE, but the document is perfectly readable and it prints perfectly. It's not particularly read-only because it's still ultimately a text file, but neither is PDF when it comes down to it. And there are some ways around that, so catch me later, there's a few technical things you can do to prevent people doing anything too nasty to it. User expectations, as I mentioned, are the biggest unknown, but we've now sent reports to several hundred people, all using different email systems, different browsers, different corporate networks, and I'm yet to hear if anyone's got a problem. In fact, most of the users seem to love it. They love it so much they're now expecting the monthly reports before the end of the month, which means the data's not complete, which is that's users for you anyway. So all the code is on GitHub. That's the address. So you can grab it, use it, do what you like with it. I don't care. It's all open source. And of course, if you want somebody to help you out with that, well, I don't know, maybe hire some sort of free web developer from somewhere.
Free.
Free as in time, free. But maybe, I might give you a bit of free consultancy. This is free consultancy. Thanks, Andy. Cheers. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for turning up. Sorry it's not about Internet of Things, but I hope you found it useful.